It's human nature to define and classify everything in life. Some things are right and some things are left. Other things are Western and the things opposite of that are Eastern. We're constantly dividing and separating ourselves from people and ideas. Which is why this director, Akira Kurosawa, is so special. Here's the story of an artist with the ability to transcend those lines. His balance between Western storytelling and Eastern traditions helped build his fame on the world stage. Kurosawa rose above the divisive noise. He fused two concepts that many thought would never work together. It's why he's a director more than worthy of a video here on this channel. Join me as we break down just a fraction of the elements that make him such a special force in cinema. Kurosawa didn't always convey such a realistic tone in his films. The push towards grounded stories came midway into his career. He started out making more adventures and action films early on. However, one film in particular stands out as the crossroads between these two phases. That film is Rashomon. He edited the film himself. It was a common practice for him, and he would often edit as the film was in production. But the screenplay was written with the help of Shinobu Hashimoto. The two men collaborated on a few projects together, but this one stands out for its unique way of structuring the narrative. You're actually probably familiar with this setup now. The Rashomon-style story is common in pop culture. The story is told from a variety of perspectives. In this case, the story is told by four characters. There's the bandit, the wife, the ghost of the husband, and the woodcutter. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, there's a ghost in the story summoned by a medium. That's a big part of what separates this film from his later works in true realism. Anyways, the four stories all differ from one another, with many people considering the woodcutter story to be the true one, since it's told at the end. Nowadays, that's the formula you see on TV shows that use this structure for special episodes. There's always one person at the end of the 30 minutes who saw the whole thing as a third-party observer and gives the real account. Honestly, there's more than enough examples out there for you to go find on a quick search. I don't want to dwell on this for too long. What I instead want to focus on is the theme within this first telling. See, the thing about Kurosawa's films is the third-party observer is not without fault. That's a common through line in all of his movies. No person is perfect in a Kurosawa film. He often focuses in on these imperfections in unique ways and drives the story forward through the noticeable traits in these less than ideal characters. Humanity is flawed, and when morals press into people, they reveal their true character. He knew this and created stories that showed this on display. So yes, the woodcutter is not an honest perspective, which means no story in Rashomon is totally believable. The truth is obscured by ego and the motivations of each person. Therein lies the part of this film that separates it from other adaptations. There is no honest reality in Rashomon, only perceived reality, which, if we're honest with ourselves, is true to human nature. His story is capturing the flaw of every person. We all craft the story of our lives in a way that fits our narrative. Rashomon simply exposes that fact. Which circles back to the discussion about realism. Whether based on a previous work or a myth, reality or fiction, all of Kurosawa's work encompasses life as we see it. At the end of the day, his films are deeply human. Every character in his film breathes naturally and moves fluidly. Even the spirits hold on to human characteristics. So while his films don't shout realism all the time, every single one of them grounds itself in the themes of morality and the flaws of humanity. Kurosawa himself saw one true theme in the collection of his work. He wanted to know why people couldn't be happy together. It's a big reason why relationships between characters drive his stories forward, and the emotion is so clearly written on the faces of his characters. Rashomon is just one of the great examples from his filmography of people working against one another to prevent happiness and understanding. It's important to remember that Kurosawa tried his hand at painting before moving into film. He failed as a painter, but I would argue the only problem was that the canvas was too limited. Using the camera as a paintbrush, he was able to render massive shots of pure cinematic bliss. Of course, none of his ideas were possible without a crew of dedicated professionals. They often referred to Kurosawa as the Emperor while on set. That tight schedule and attention to detail paid off though, and a film like Throne of Blood proves it. Throne of Blood was shot by Sakazu Naki. the same cinematographer that worked with Kurosawa on Seven Samurai. Now, I could have picked any film here to show off the talent for composure that appears throughout his filmography. I chose Throne of Blood for its connection to a Western story. The story is based off Shakespeare's Macbeth, a story most of us are familiar with. Kurosawa splits off from the poetic dialogue of the English play and adapts it to a more common idea. Once again, we're pressed with a flawed portrait of a relationship and humans who can't seem to find happiness being with each other. What we're here for, though, is the look of the Throne of Blood. So let's go a little deeper. There's been a lot said about movement in Kurosawa's films. The way he set up his camera added to the effect. He used 3 cameras at once to make the scenes easier to edit, but also to give the motion a smooth transition and natural feel. Every single time a piece moves, it's intentional. In fact, he was known for pushing the crew on set when the fake weather detail wasn't right. He'd work his people all day just to get the dust and rain moving the right way with the camera. He once stopped a scene because a nail on the set was showing during the filming of this exact movie. The man was incredibly detail-oriented. I wanted to pull into focus another aspect of Kurosawa's cinematography. The look of his actors is an underappreciated part of his films. See, for as strict as he was when it came to weather, it was actually the exact opposite effect for his work with actors. The people on set playing the characters felt comfortable and guided by him. It really shows in their scenes. Let's take one a little bit more in detail. This is the scene leading up to the murder of the Great Lord. The way the characters move and express themselves is integral to the story here. You don't need the dialogue to understand each character's positions. The guards stand stalwart, guarding the room and are on high alert. You can tell by the way they hop up the minute something happens and the serious expressions that never sway. Counter to that is the 2 characters there to bless the room and remove the bad omens. At first, they seem reverent and official. As we see them enter the room, you'll notice how their hands shake and the expressions become more concerned. They feel the darkness and bad things to come. It shows on their faces. From here, we cut to the main relationship. This version is Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Again, the words are not taken exact from Shakespeare, but everyone knows what scene is going on here. Our main character is contemplating his move. His wife is beckoning him on. We actually can't even see her yet. Her voice is coming from off screen, but the blocking direction from Kurosawa to the actor here tells us a lot about what is being processed. There's a feeling of uncertainty based on the way the character moves and looks. It's only further built up by the inclusion of the wife in this scene. When we do see her, she remains stoic and unflinching. She knows what must be done, and she remains firm in that position. Finally, she stands and the 2 split along an imagined line facing in opposite directions. One could argue this shows the 2 paths they can go on from here. Suddenly, they move towards their bed. They get in a position and the scheme begins. We see lights in the distance, as the torches of the 2 men from earlier come to take them to the new room that's now been cleansed. However, the subtext is clear. They went from standing in opposite directions to gathering in one point. They're in this together. The conspiracy is set. There's no turning back. We get all of that from the faces and blocking in the scene. This is where paying attention to the details you want to put in the film pays off. Kurosawa is a master at this. Some of you may have clicked on this video with no knowledge of Kurosawa. The name might sound a bit familiar, but the filmography is a complete mystery. If that's the case, I encourage you to check his films out, because you may find these stories are already super familiar to you. See, that's a quirk in Kurosawa's work. You've seen his style before countless times, but you might not have noticed. Here's an obvious example. He lives on in the films of those he inspired. The impressive visuals and tight stories were easily adaptable. Many filmmakers around the world were inspired by his movies. It's not just Western directors that took an interest in his impact. Again, that's the whole point of this video. Kurosawa broke through those perceived cultural barriers. He showed off his gripping and hero-focused stories to his Japanese audience, but also introduced American audiences to the beauty and sensibility of Japanese folklore. The 2 went hand in hand and bridged the artistic cultures into amazing movies. Directors from both countries saw this happen and were inspired. The Force in Star Wars is the kind of thing you'd see in a Kurosawa film. The flawed cowboys and the Magnificent Seven come directly from one of his greatest films. Many films in the Western genre built their protagonists out of the mold of Kurosawa's grandest characters. The flawed hero struggling to do good is nothing new. Kurosawa just showed filmmakers a new spin on the once tired trope. What's more, Kurosawa continues to bring foreign films to an American audience. I'm from a small town here in the United States. I can attest to the immediate comfort level one feels watching his movies. All of them are just about people. They're not specifically about one kind of person in the relation to one kind of country. His work is universal. Watching helps many people connect to the more foreign directors and begin to feel less intimidated by films outside their borders. A big reason for that is the genre he stuck with early on. People get action and adventure. Samurai films were grounded by him. The concept of a noble warrior tied to a lord was new to audiences outside Japan. He took the character and put them in story arcs made in Hollywood. They were just cowboys who grew up under a different roof. None of this is possible without the bevy of factors that went into his movies. Kurosawa weighed out each and every scene's impact. He worked with his actors to give them more range and emotional impact in scenes. Everything he did for his films was for a greater purpose. The movies were made to be seen by everyone. It worked. All that hard work paid off. We see his influence in every single superhero movie and blockbuster film that gets released. His legacy is entrenched in cinema. All around the world, film students study frames of his films to learn the craft. That's where perfectionism gets you. Finding ways to tell stories with grounded themes and beautiful detail worked out in the end. There's no secret formula here. Kurosawa knew how to make great films, and he made sure he didn't take shortcuts. That's why you can find his fingerprints in so many modern stories. Give Kurosawa all the credit for some of your favorite movies. He built the structure they were built around. We're all so thankful for that. Well, that's all I have for this video. I want to thank you all for your patience. Hopefully you enjoy this video and want to see more. If that is the case, comment down below and join the discussion. Subscribe for more videos and support me on my Patreon. I don't monetize these videos, so every bit of support helps.